Jasper Rabbit's Creepy Tales, Troubling Tonsils. You have stumbled your way into the unknown, the unexpected. You have arrived without a road map at the crossroads where strange and silly meet, and there's no turning back. Be warned. Creepy things lie on the following pages, and creepiness has a habit of doing strange things to readers. For example, you may possibly find yourself peeing your pants without knowing whether it's from fright or hilarity, or maybe just confusion. If that's the kind of story you seek, the kind that makes you pee your pants for a variety of reasons, then you are in the right place. Feel free to turn the page, but proceed with caution. Tonsils. Yes, indeed. It is a strange word and an even stranger thing. Or things, if we're going to be precise. For that is what they are, a pair of things. Two small, pink, pulpy things, wads, lumps, glands, technically speaking. Two little pink fleshy glands that reside snugly in the back of your throat. They are likely there right now, watching, waiting. They've always seemed suspicious to me, these tonsils. After all, what are they up to, lurking back there in the dark? Why do they linger in the shadows? It would seem they have a job to do. Their job? To battle germs and infections that decide to seek entry to your body through the throat. They are warriors, these tonsils. Fighters. Survivors. But even warriors are not without weakness. For sometimes they, these strange tonsils of ours, turn red. Sometimes they stop doing their job. And sometimes it would seem these little lumps, these tiny fleshy wads, these ever-present glands, sometimes they simply have a mind of their own. Meet Charlie Marmot. Just your average run-of-the-mill large furry rodent who wears clothes and lives in a house and goes to school. Normal everyday animal stuff. Autumn is in the air and brings with it many joys to young marmots like Charlie. Leaves crunching underfoot, puddles to splash in, crisp, windy days. The inevitable trick-or-treating that lurks just over the horizon. This autumn is no exception, except that it holds in its clutches something extra for Charlie Marmot. Charlie doesn't know it yet, but his tonsils have an infection. An infection that, medically speaking, is quite easy to resolve. But on this brisk week in October, Charlie's tonsils are going to do more than infect his throat. They are going to infect his life and swallow him down into the deep, dark tunnel of his very own creepy tale. Chapter 1. Charlie Marmot, like any other children his age during the month of October, had just returned from a field trip to the local pumpkin patch. And there are a few things a young, red-blooded marmot loves more than a field trip to the pumpkin patch. It was here, at his dining room table, pumpkin before him, carving knife in hand, dreams and designs of a jack-o'-lantern in his heart, that he felt it. The first inklings of his coming fate. A sore throat. He coughed, trying to clear it, but it hurt to swallow. He coughed again, catching the attention, as only a cough can, of his mother. "Are you feeling all right?" his mother asked. "Yes," he answered, voice slightly raspy, "but my throat hurts." His mother probed his neck and throat with a firm hand. "Your adenoids feel swollen," she said. Charlie, like most of us, had no idea what an adenoid was. It is secret knowledge, you see, imparted only to mothers and those in the medical community. So, to the average young marmot, this mysterious swollen adenoid, whatever it was, would sound vaguely alarming. But to a dramatic and overly imaginative marmot like Charlie, it clearly had the stink of death and doom hanging all over it. "Am I going to die?" Charlie cried, prodding his throat. With morbid fascination, Charlie envisioned his adenoids swelling larger and larger until his throat was the size of a small minibus. He had to admit it would be a cool way to go. His mother chuckled. "No, but you need to go to the doctor tomorrow. And if I miss work again, I am going to die because my boss will kill me." Charlie's father was on the scene now. "I can take the morning off tomorrow," he said with an easy grin. "Your mom can drop your sister off at school, and I'll take you to the doctor. It'll be just us guys. So it was that, the next morning, Charlie Marmot and his father found themselves in the office of Dr. Burrows. Once again, Charlie's neck and throat were probed. A bright light was shined down his throat. He said, "Ah," and then came the pronouncement. "It's your tonsils," said Dr. Burrows with a conclusive grimace. "They'll need to come out. It's a simple operation." The word operation, of course, struck a fair amount of concern into Charlie's small, marmoty heart. "Operation?" he cried. "Like, you'll cut me all open?" Dr. Burrows hunched down until he was eye level with his patient. "Don't worry, Charlie. You'll be asleep for the whole thing. It only takes about 30 minutes from beginning to end. You'll never know what happened." "Is it really necessary?" asked Charlie's father. "Can't you give him some cough medicine or something?" "Is it really necessary?" asked Charlie's father. "Can't you give him some cough syrup or something?" Dr. Burrows smiled. Then he hung his throat-inspecting gadget back on the wall. "I'm afraid not, but don't worry. It's a very simple and routine procedure." That was good to know. Charlie imagined himself sprawled on the operating table, his liver and lungs and all other assorted organs lying out in the open, while Dr. Burrows dug around inside him looking for the right part to remove. He didn't know anyone who had had his guts taken out before. But a fresh thought popped into his mind. "Wait, how am I supposed to stay alive if you take out my tonsils?" asked Charlie. As intriguing as it might have been to be inside out, there were practical matters to consider, and staying alive without his tonsils was one of them. "Your tonsils," Dr. Burrows said, pronouncing the word clearly, "are two little pulpy wads of flesh that live in the back of your throat. They fight infection. They are tough little glands, but sometimes they themselves get infected. That's when they need to be removed." Dr. Burrows gripped him by the shoulder, like they were two pals just chatting. "But don't worry, Charlie. You can live just fine without them. You'll still be able to fight throat infections with no problem, and you'll get to eat loads of ice cream before and after your recovery." Loads of ice cream did have its appeal, but now a brilliant thought emerged in Charlie's mind. A fantastic thought. An utterly genius thought. Possibly one of the best thoughts he had ever had in his small furry life. "Can I keep them?" he asked eagerly. "Keep what?" said Dr. Burrows distractedly as he updated Charlie's medical chart. Yes, there was no doubt. This idea was perfect, even better than ice cream. "Can I keep my tonsils?" he asked excitedly. "After you take them out." Chapter 2. Charlie's dad, Bartholomew Marmot, was still very much a young marmot at heart, so he instantly saw the appeal of Charlie's idea. Why, if he'd still had his tonsils in his throat, he'd probably have asked the doctor to remove them while he was at it. Then Charlie's dad would have taken them to work at the grain warehouse and shown them off to Jimmy Diggsmidgen, the forklift operator. Wouldn't Jimmy have gotten a laugh out of that? "That's a great idea," said Charlie's dad. "What is?" asked Dr. Burrows. "Letting him keep his tonsils," cried Charlie's dad. "How fun is that?" Dr. Burrows scratched behind his ear. "I'm not so sure that fun is the word I would use." "Please, Dr. Burrows," pleaded Charlie, seeing an idea was sprouting now deep in the back of his clever marmot brain, an idea that would blow everyone away. His sister Flora, his teacher, his class. Why, the whole school. "I can take the tonsils in for show and tell!" yelled Charlie, his red and swollen tonsils catching in his throat. "Now that is the perfect idea," roared Charlie's dad enthusiastically. "You'll get an A for sure." "Show and tell?" asked Dr. Burrows. "Exactly," said Charlie. What? Dr. Burrows was unsure how to proceed. He had never received a request like this before. "I'm not quite sure that's sanitary. What would you do with them? Carry them around in a brown paper bag like a tuna fish sandwich?" "I could put them in a jar," cried Charlie. "That's great," said Charlie's dad. "A jar." "A jar?" Dr. Burrows wondered aloud. "Like a goldfish in a bowl?" Charlie and his dad nodded in unison. "Exactly," cried Bartholomew Marmot. just like a goldfish in a bowl. What's the harm in that? Well, Dr. Burrows didn't like to admit it, but deep down he was warming to the idea. Why, when he himself was a young marmot, he would have given anything to plop a freshly plucked organ or gland from inside his own body into a jar, carry it to school, and show it off. He turned back to his young patient. I suppose there's no harm, he said with a smile, as long as you keep them inside the jar. It's settled then, cried Bartholomew Marmot, almost as excited as his son. Charlie rubbed his hands together eagerly. Just wait until Mrs. Moleskin sees my wads. Your glands, the doctor said, correcting him. Right, said Charlie, my glands. Boy, oh boy, I'm going to get an A for sure. Chapter 3. Charlie's surgery was scheduled for Friday of that week. This meant 3 days of missed school, so that he was sure not to infect the rest of the class. During the days ahead, he ate lots of ice cream and watched lots of television. While he didn't mind missing a few days of school, he wanted to be sure to be back next week for the big, creepy season costume parade. And he couldn't get it out of his head. His triumphant return to school on Monday with his tonsils in hand, he could see it already. 2 gross, pulpy masses of flesh just sitting there in a jar, perched proudly on the edge of his desk. Maybe they would be scabby or covered in pus. It was going to be great. Maybe he would even take them to lunch and put them right in the middle of the table like a pulpy, disgusting flower arrangement. Some kids might even barf. He was going to be the star of the school next week, the envy of every other kid. He had already picked out the perfect jar. It used to hold pickles, but he had convinced his mom to dump the pickles into a plastic baggie. It was the perfect jar for something gross. Wide and tall with great viewing angles, and the shape of the jar was ideal because it made things inside it look slightly too big, which was perfect when trying to show off something especially disgusting. Charlie had washed the jar and removed the label, and now it sat in a place of honor on his desk, ready to receive its wonderfully repulsive cargo on Friday. The night before his surgery, Charlie settled into sleep. He was a little nervous about his procedure the next day, but not too much. The doctor had assured him he would be asleep for the whole thing. He had to admit his throat barely hurt anymore. Maybe it was the healing power of ice cream. Lying there in the darkened room, he was just about to drift off to sleep when he heard it. A tinkling, scraping sound coming from his bookshelf, followed by a slightly wet sloop, like a soggy washcloth plopping to the floor. He bolted upright, scurried to his desk, and clicked on the lamp. Charlie Marmot scanned the room, the desk, the bookshelf. There was nobody there. Nothing was out of place. No, there. He examined the middle shelf. Sure enough, his Captain Groundhog action figure was lying face down, next to the cool, bespoke Coca-Cola bottle he had saved. The action figure had just fallen over, toppling against the glass bottle. No big deal. Charlie snatched the toppled figure and tossed it onto his desk. After clicking off the light, he climbed back into bed and burrowed under the covers, and was soon fast asleep. He was unaware, of course, that through the shadowy gloom of the darkened room, he was being watched. Chapter 4. Friday arrived for Charlie Marmot, and with it the nerve-wracking realization that he would soon be rendered unconscious and carved into like a Christmas cabbage. The nurses at the hospital were quite nice. They smiled reassuringly as they gave Charlie a hospital gown and checked his temperature. His mother, looking a little worried, stayed with him right until the nurses rolled him off to surgery. He was brought into a room with a bright light, and there, looming large, was Dr. Burrows. "Good morning, Charlie," said the doctor cheerfully. "As we've discussed, there's nothing whatsoever to fear. We'll give you some medicine that will make you drowsy, and when you wake up, the whole procedure will be done. You won't feel a thing. And you'll have a huge bowl of ice cream to show for it. Ice cream and a jar full of tonsils that I get to show off to everybody," Charlie reminded the doctor. Yes, said Dr. Burrows. Yes, that too. All Charlie's nervousness faded as he thought excitedly of his precious tonsil jar. He just had to keep his eye on the prize, and what better prize could there be than a container filled with gooey glands? All right, Charlie said with a nod. I'm ready. That's the spirit, said the doctor. Now, before we put you to sleep, open wide and let me just take a look at the little buggers. Charlie opened wide as instructed. The bright light, shining down from above as it was, blinded him completely so that in the white hazy glare Charlie was aware of nothing but the soft sounds Dr. Burrows made above him. Sounds that shifted from pleasant but slightly annoying humming to a confused mutter to complete and ominous silence. The silence, which lingered longer than Charlie was comfortable with, was finally broken by the even more ominous words of Dr. Burrows. Nurse, please bring Charlie's mother in here. A lump, hard and round, rose in Charlie's stomach. He began to speak. What's going on? He quickly realized that Dr. Burrows was still probing around inside his mouth with a small wooden stick. Don't talk right now, Charlie. There's a good lad. Give me a moment. That was when Charlie Marmot knew. That was the moment the chilling realization hit him right between the eyes. He was doomed. Chapter 5. He wasn't doomed, as it turned out. Not quite yet, at any rate. Charlie, flat on his back, blinded by the overhead light, heard his mother enter the room. As the door to the operating room creaked open, he felt her motherly presence and caught a faint whiff of her dandelion perfume. These comforted Charlie for a moment. "What's the problem, doctor?" she asked. "Is Charlie all right?" "Quite all right, Mrs. Marmot. Fear not," came the reply of the doctor. While his remark was reassuring, there was something disquieting in his tone. "It's just that—" "It's just that what, Dr. Burrows?" "Well, it's just that— Well, it's the tonsils. Are they worse? Has the infection spread?" "It's just that— Well, I'm terribly embarrassed and don't know quite how to say it." The doctor paused awkwardly. "The tonsils are gone." Silence filled the room. Terrible, sinister silence. "What do you mean they're gone?" his mother asked. There was a tone of menace in her voice now, a tone that Charlie knew only too well. However, for once it was not directed at him, but at the doctor. They're not here," sputtered the doctor. "I don't understand it at all. Did you go to another doctor to have them removed since I saw Charlie last?" "Don't be ridiculous," said Mrs. Marmot frostily. Well, I mean to say—" Dr. Burrows was clearly beside himself. Charlie could well imagine the dark look that was currently emanating from his mother. It would unsettle anyone, even a medical professional. "They were right there," the doctor cried. "I'm certain of it. Red and inflamed and clear as day." "How could they simply be gone?" Charlie's mother demanded. Dr. Burrows cleared his throat. I must have made a mistake. Perhaps his uvula was dangling in the way and blocked me from a proper view. Or perhaps Charlie was born without tonsils." "Born without tonsils?" cried Mrs. Marmot. "Is that even possible?" "Well, that is, I admit that it is almost unheard of," stuttered Dr. Burrows. "But there have been rare cases reported. It's only— Well, I could swear they were right there." The doctor wiped a shaking hand over his face, unable to make eye contact with Charlie's mother. "As I said, I'm terribly embarrassed." Charlie almost felt sorry for the poor man. Regardless of the cause, there are no tonsils currently residing in Charlie's throat, so his surgery will not be necessary after all. The doctor's words puttered and died. Then he added, "And of course there will be no charge for today." "I would think not," came Mrs. Marmot's cold reply. "I don't know if this has ever happened to you. You're lying on the operating table wearing a thin paper gown that does not cover your backside. Your heart is full of trepidation. Your mind is full of fear, scrolling through all the possible ways your looming surgery could go wrong. Suddenly, salvation. For some reason or another, your surgery is no longer required. Certain death has been postponed. Relief floods you. You have been spared the knife. Charlie Marmot felt all things in this moment, but also disappointment. For it is bitterly disappointing to spend 3 days anticipating a triumphant return to school on Monday, bloody pus-covered tonsils in hand, only to discover that you will be carrying nothing at all to school with you on Monday, except maybe a bologna sandwich and a juice box and a pickle. Chapter 6. It was a mystery, that was for certain. A real puzzler, one that Charlie couldn't help but ponder with fascination. One day he had tonsils, infected and swollen. The next day, they were gone. Had the doctor truly made a mistake? Or had something else occurred? Something strange and freaky? Charlie liked the idea of that explanation much better. The idea that, who knows what, maybe aliens had come in the night and taken them. Or Bigfoot. Or maybe Dr. Burroughs had secretly plucked them out quick when Charlie wasn't looking and he was using them for mad science experiments. Such ideas were ridiculous, of course, but fun to think about nonetheless. But like many amusing thoughts, these quickly passed from Charlie Marmot's mind. By Saturday morning, Charlie's throat was feeling completely recovered, and his mother let him go outside and play. He spent the day goofing around with Harlan, the kid next door, who was 1 year younger than Charlie and usually very annoying. But on that autumn Saturday, Harlan was a welcome distraction from being sick in bed. The two played with toy cars in a big dirt pile from a hole that Harlan's dad had dug and not yet filled in. They talked about what they would dress up as for Halloween and debated the best and worst candies to get when trick-or-treating. By the end of the day, Charlie was dirty and happy. After dinner, his mother made him take a bath, and then he climbed into bed and fell almost immediately to sleep. Charlie Marmot slept deeply and soundly. That is, until about 3 a.m. Chapter 7. It was the sound that woke him. A slithery, gooey, unsettling sound. He rolled over, hand groggily searching for his pillow, his sleep-addled brain dismissing the sound as part of some weird dream. But instead of finding his pillow, his hand wrapped around his gooseneck desk lamp. That's weird, thought Charlie, still wrapped in the dreamy fog of sleep. My lamp is on my desk, not my bed. His eyes peeked open. He was right. His desk lamp was, of course, on his desk, not his bed. And so was Charlie Marmot. He was splayed across his desk like a pile of unfinished homework. His eyes were fully open now. It is incredibly disconcerting to fall asleep in one place and wake up in another. Small critters often experience this, having drifted off in the car during a long car ride, only to wake the next morning in the comfort and safety of their own bed. After the initial wakeful confusion, even very young preschoolers quickly realized that they were carried to bed by a loving and caring parent. Charlie experienced this disconcerting feeling now, but Charlie was no preschooler, and rather than fading away to a comforting realization, his confusion instead morphed into the spooky sense that something was very wrong. He sat bolt upright, hands slamming not against the softness of his feather mattress as they should have, but against the hard, unyielding mahogany of his desk. He dropped the lamp onto the floor. It hit with a soft clatter as Charlie looked across the room at his empty bed. Because it was, of course, empty. The covers still rumpled from his recent slumber. Messy flotsam, the very stuff that had covered his desk earlier that night. Lamp, school books, his Captain Groundhog action figure, the still empty pickle jar. All of it had been swept aside and now lay scattered on the carpet nearby. There could be no doubt. Charlie had systematically and undeniably been removed from his bed, extracted, plucked from his slumber with the precision of a scalpel blade and laid out on his desk like so much unfolded laundry. Why? To what end? And even creepier to contemplate, by whom? Was it actually aliens intent on studying him? This thought, which had seemed so amusing in the light of day, now seemed terrifying, and his eyes quickly skimmed the darkness, searching for Martians with big, bulbous eyes and long, unsettling necks. But his room appeared to be alien-free. Was this his big sister's idea of a prank? Flora did not possess a sense of humor that he was aware of, so it seemed unlikely. Maybe it was evil robots bent on his eradication. It is interesting in the dark of night, when eerie things occur, how quickly we latch on to any number of unsettling explanations, no matter how far-fetched. Charlie forced himself to take a deep breath. "Quit being a baby," he thought. "You probably just sleepwalked, that's all." This, of course, was a logical and very mature conclusion to draw, especially for a marmot of his age. And yet his eyes continued to scan the darkened room, seeking out some other telltale explanation. There was nothing. Except his eyes caught it, glinting in the light that peeked in through the slats of the window blinds. A glistening wet mark on the floor, like the trail of ooze that a snail leaves behind. It led from Charlie's bookshelves to his bed to his desk. And there! A second one. Charlie pulled his feet from the floor. He thought about calling for his dad, but couldn't quite get his throat to make the noise. Minutes passed in utter, stony silence. Finally, mustering his courage, he climbed down from the desk. He bent down to the snail trail and swiped a finger through it. Wet, but also slimy. This wasn't caused by green-skinned aliens. This wasn't Bigfoot or even robots. No. This was something far more sinister, something far more dastardly, something far more, there was no pleasant way to say it, gooey. Chapter 8. Charlie did not sleep a wink for the rest of the night, and when morning dawned he kept these unsettling late-night happenings to himself. He trudged through the day like a zombie, jumping at shadows and startling at every quick movement. He cleaned his room from top to bottom, searching under toys and behind books for evidence of something, anything, to explain the slimy trail and distressing occurrences from the night before. But his cleaning yielded nothing, except surprised looks from his parents. When bedtime finally arrived, Charlie was exhausted. He felt he could sleep for a week. But no, something sinister was afoot, and he would stay awake forever if necessary to prevent it. Charlie was right, of course. Something sinister was indeed afoot. But Charlie was also wrong. He would not stay awake forever if necessary, for, as you yourself know, the more you try to stay awake, the drowsier you become. So it was that, sometime between midnight and early morning, that some undetermined hour in the wee minutes of the night, Charlie drifted off, still sitting resolutely upright in his bed. So exhausted was he, and so soundly did he sleep, that later he would recall no dreams from that night, only the distant sound of metal being carefully and repeatedly pierced by something sharp. Chapter 9. Charlie awoke to daylight streaming through the window and the sound of his mother's voice. "Wake up!" the voice cried softly. There was a soft tap, like a finger on a window. "Hey, wake up, little guy!" his eyes cracked open, groggily blinking away the sleep of the night. "There you go, little buddy." He had done it, he realized. He had fallen asleep while on watch. But he had slept well, and he had made it through the night with no weird strangeness taking place. Perhaps he had been right the first time. Perhaps he had simply sleepwalked. After all, there was usually a logical and mature explanation to most things in life. He stood up from bed, rubbing his eyes, intent on making his way to the bathroom, and in doing so, Charlie Marmot smacked right into the wall. He opened his eyes, alert now. There was indeed a wall in front of him, a smooth, curved, glass wall. His eyes darted to the side, following the wall. It surrounded him completely. He was no longer in his room. He was in some type of glass chamber. No, a glass capsule. A prison. No. A deep sense of unease surfaced from the bowels of his being. Charlie Marmot was in a jar. Wads of straw and grass had been placed on the floor beneath his feet. A feeble attempt at creating a soft and comforting nest of sorts. And above, far above him, a metal lid blotted out the sky. The lid had been punctured with holes in an effort to provide air. But by whom? Charlie's eyes peered through the glass that surrounded him, beyond the confines of the jar. He was in a classroom? Yes, it was a classroom. That much was certain. A classroom sprawled out before him. Desks formed neat rows throughout the room. A large whiteboard covered a wall behind his jar. A larger desk, adult-sized in proportion to the others, sat to his right. And behind it, in a chair, was a thing. A pink, pulpy thing, a lump, a wad. And there was no other word for it. A gland. The gland wore small, horn-rimmed glasses, and though there was no sign of arms or hands or any appendages, it held a small pencil and seemed to be writing something down. Terror gripped Charlie's soul. His eyes, like the eyes of some trapped reptile, darted back to the classroom. Yes, there, behind each desk, was a smaller lump of fleshy pink. It was a classroom full of them. And then Charlie became aware of the sound of the voice. "There he is," said the voice. "He's waking up now," said the other. The voices came from very close, right to the side of the jar, in fact. And they came not from one, but from two pulpy, fleshy, pink lumps. A pair of wet, lumpy wads. A pair of glands. And then he knew. There were no distinguishing marks on these lumps, no way to differentiate them from the others in the room. But he knew. This pair of glands, they were tonsils. His tonsils. "Gentlemen," came a voice from the larger gland, the glasses-wearing tonsil behind the desk. "This is certainly an impressive specimen you've brought in for show and tell. Please proceed." The pair of nearby tonsils began to address the classroom, pointing out some interesting fact or other about the contents of the jar. But Charlie couldn't make out any of it, for as he placed his hand against the glass, the buzzing in his own ears drowned out all the sounds. Drowned out the voices of the two tonsils explaining interesting facts about Charlie to the rest of the glands present. Drown out the oohs of interest and gags of repulsion coming from the classroom. Drown out the scream that began welling up in his own, no longer sore, throat. What was to become of Charlie Marmot? What strange fate lurked ahead of him? His future at that moment was unclear, his prospects extremely uncertain. What was certain? Only one thing. Charlie Marmot's tonsils were going to get an A in show and tell. That much was obvious. Jars. They can hold many things. Pickles, spaghetti sauce, grasshoppers, lightning bugs, and yes, tonsils. A jar can even hold the fate of a young marmot reduced in the prime of his life to a simple school project. Charlie Marmot's story is a cautionary tale for us all. A tale as old as time itself, living proof that careful consideration should be given to what we stuff into jars. The next time you, jar in hand, approach that grasshopper, that lightning bug, that seemingly unneeded gland from your own body, spare a thought for Charlie Marmot and be wary, for you may unwittingly find yourself becoming the star of your very own creepy tale.